Love is a high-risk behavior.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, High Risk for Heartbreak. I am your host, Christina, and I am so glad you decided to join me again, or if it's your first time, today. We are waist deep. Waist deep? Yeah, we're about waist deep into the holiday season. I hope you guys have been getting all your shopping done. I was determined to make sure that I had my shopping done early. I had it, for the most part, I had 2 more people to shop for. But for the most part, it was all complete before November even left the house. And now I'm behind because I haven't shipped out or wrapped any of the gifts. So here we are. Hopefully this weekend I'll get a chance to be able to wrap some of these gifts or all of them actually and get them out of here so that they arrive on time because you know mailing during this season is shifty. It's shifty. And with all these porch pirates, you guys, I've had so many packages stolen from my apartment. It's crazy. At this point, I don't even have them delivered here. I have them delivered, especially if it's Amazon, to an Amazon locker and I go pick it up, which completely defeats the purpose of the convenience of ordering from a website. Anyway, that's a tangent. I want to go ahead and jump into today's episode. As we are waist deep into the holiday season, we are experiencing all of these wonderful work holiday parties and Friendsmas. I had never heard of Friendsmas before. Somebody that I know recently mentioned going to a Friendsmas party, and I was like, I love that. I'm going to make one of those next year. But yes, people are just having a good time partying it up. And because of that, we know that we're going to be having lots of interactions. And as you know, this podcast is all about relationships. So I wanted to give you guys some tips today on tough table conversations that may come up in your holiday experiences. Last year, I had the opportunity to see my brother and sister-in-law for Thanksgiving after 11 years apart. Typically, part of my family will get together for the holiday season, and in my time living long distance, as I would choose to go to wherever the majority of my family was, if I did travel at all. Because of the nature of my work, sometimes I actually didn't travel. This time was precious, though. It was beautiful to be able to see them, all of my nieces together in one space. None of them, literally 0 of them, existed 11 years prior to this. 11 years prior to that, my brother and my sister-in-law were just getting married. 11 years prior to that, my sister was carrying my eldest niece in her own belly. 11 years prior, I was the happiest I had ever been, I think, living in La La Landia. If you guys know, you know. I was acting, I was training, I was performing aerial every weekend. I was in love with who at the time I thought was the love of my life. I was 11 years ago someone who I am no longer. In our few days of family time together, we were all kind of just uploading new data, sharing new experiences, and becoming reacquainted with each other as time and distance of great proportion can make you unfamiliar. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but especially with extended family, sometimes you don't see all of them over the holiday seasons or throughout the year. So when you come together, it's like, woo, we're pretty unfamiliar. We got to get reacquainted. There were a couple of choppy moments, of course, like any family would have, especially because literally there were 4 new humans who had been added to the bunch who were not here before. And I missed so much, and so much missed me, honestly. Reflecting back, time has a beautiful way of showing us that while our past for us may be long ago, our past for some others is still very much present. When a significant amount of time has passed, memories are encapsulated. I talked about this last episode. And what you remember of that person is based on the last experience that you had with them. You may remember them to be younger than they appear. You may remember them to be less wise than they now are. You may remember the thing that they did when they did that thing. You may remember them to be whatever your idea of them was the last time that you had a significant encounter together. Especially with family, when long stretches between visits happen, if you have ever experienced this, it's like educating them all over again while simultaneously catching up. It's like, yes, that's who I was then, but this is who I am now. And I think most of us can attest to the story of seeing extended family members, especially after a significant amount of time has passed. And when you're reacquainted, they're in disbelief and you're in disbelief, and then they hit you with the, oh my goodness, you've grown so much. That's my personal favorite. Also, I knew you when you were just a baby. and then they treat you like you were just a baby. I would be lying to say that I have not had similar words for younger people because, time passes and the changes that happen are just so rapid and they're so astonishing, even when they're happening in front of your face. And sometimes that just looks like people wanting to hold on to that encapsulated moment because it's better than the reality of getting to know something new. When visiting family during the holiday season, you might find at your beautiful dinner time or your gatherings and your family events of celebration that people want you to be the old you, and they will refer to you as such until you teach them otherwise. People, especially family, are inclined to remember you in a certain way, but not get to know the new you, particularly the one that you want them to know, especially when an estrangement has happened or a lot of time has passed. That can create some difficult conversations. So today I want to discuss a few ways to navigate tough table conversations over the holidays, but this is applicable anytime. So let's relate. Someone from my past resurrected a few months back, and the exchange that we had was interesting to say the least. They made a point to reminisce about old times, lighting the highs and dimming the lows. They assured me things that happened didn't happen, and best of all, they could only see me as the old me. I have done a complete 180 since that time in my life, thankfully. So I was left explaining to them that me that they remember is, no longer me. Now, this time of interaction is completely normal, especially because literally we haven't seen each other in over a decade. And the funniest part of these types of interactions is that way that they choose to relate to me, or the way that they did choose to relate to me, was the same as a decade ago, as if we hadn't become completely new people 2, 3, and 4 times over again. And of course, I'm not unrecognizable to the naked eye, and neither were they, but the things that worked in the past to me were a distant memory and no more valuable than the American dollar these days. Oh no. In all seriousness, I was taken aback at their way of relating to me because for me, so much has changed. What ended up happening in the conversation was that there was a frustration between we're familiar, but we no longer know each other. And I use the phrase when I'm referring to people that I no longer know or that are not in my life anymore, that I don't know who they are now. Because truthfully, if enough time passes, so do the memories and the trueness of that relationship. Things just change. And if you do become reacquainted, you're left to navigate that familiarity without much certainty of who they actually are. So who are they now? Who are you now? In this case, the past that they were relating to me was no longer worth revisiting to me. And that is something that I want to speak about. I don't have a ton of regrets in the sense that things of my past or people or things that I have done, I would like to do over. Regret can easily eat away at your conscience, guiltily and shamefully causing you to lament what you cannot change. And in the past, there are people that I absolutely would have exercised more caution with and others that I would have pursued more fervently. There are places that I wouldn't have entered and lifestyle choices too. I don't regret the memory of it, but I do feel sorry for the young me who felt that she had to make amends repeatedly and repeatedly for it, not just to myself, but to others. And for many of us, when it comes to certain relationships of our past, they are not worth revisiting. It could be because of traumatic experiences that are painful reminders of the advantages that were taken of a less empowered version of us. It could be because you have reformed your life and you have grown out of childish things. It could be because you came to Christ and the world is no longer your source and haven of refuge. There are many things, and maybe it's all of them for you, like me. Many of us do not desire to show up how we did in the past. And I want to believe that this is an intrinsic evolution of nature, but I'm just not sure that it is. Now, psychology professor and director of psychology at the Center for the Social and Behavioral Science at the University of Illinois, Brent Roberts says that there are a few factors that inform the changes many experience as they grow older. He says that our personalities are more like tapestries. The threads reflect all of the different factors that go into making you the person you are. Roberts suggests that other factors could impact the personality, such as genetics, parents, siblings, mentors, romantic partners, community members, coworkers, etc. I found that on psychcentral.com if you guys want to find that article, and I'll link it below. A lot of external influences are associated with influencing our changing as we age. There is this idea that each experience is woven or threaded into the person that you show up as today. And I'd like to think that each of your experiences are part of you, but they aren't only you. To a person who has this encapsulated view of you from a memory that is a decade or more old, like myself, they have not had the privilege to see all the new threads that have been added to the tapestry that is you. And I think that what is hurtful in that is often many don't have the desire actually to get to know the new you. There's a couple of verses that I thought of while I was researching this. And the first one is Romans 12:2. And it says, "Do not be conformed by the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." This speaks to a total life change that comes from repentance, a turning away from that old lifestyle, old life governance, old life views, a renewal of your mind, of your mental and moral state of being. You're operating from a new mind. That is why it is so hard when people bring up the old things, because you're no longer acquainted with the mind of the person you used to be. That person is encapsulated. They are a few threads short of the tapestry that you are now. The other verse that I was thinking about was 2 Corinthians 5:17, and it says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation, that the old has passed away, and behold, the new has come." God offers life as a new creation on this earth through his son, Christ Jesus. Now, some of you may not know this. Maybe this is your first time hearing this, and lovely. Keep tuning in. This is speaking to salvation and sanctification. And what I really love about this verse is that it says the old passed away. Behold, the new has come. The old way of relating to God has passed away. No more sacrificing the blood of the firstborn calf. No more living in the fear under the law. Grace has come with the new. In that, we see a beautiful depiction of how we can relate to others of our past who seek to bring up the old as if it's still you. Grace has arrived for many of us, blotting out the ways that we had to relate to those very same people. Judgment has passed away, and grace has usurped the old you. The new you has come because Christ Jesus. A literal new identity is what you have when you come to Christ. Now, this may not be the type of renewal that you have experienced. Perhaps you're not even acquainted with Christ, but this still applies. I want to let you know how. In life, your intrinsic desire to become more than you were yesterday and extrinsic influences that won't allow you to be that person anyway have helped you to newness. These new threads for me have come from the intrinsic desire for elevation from the things of old and have become influenced by the extrinsic factors like God, like siblings, mentors, romantic partners, etc. I am not the person I was because I literally can't be. You might find at your upcoming holiday gatherings, your family members are familiar with you, but no longer know you. You might experience folks at your New Year's parties who haven't seen you in 11 years saying,
remember when you and I did this thing and that thing? You were wild back then. You were scared. You were overweight. You were underweight. You did not have what it took. Don't forget where you came from. Oh, you so Hollywood now. You weren't. Don't forget.
You may encounter this with people. And it's going to take everything in you not to defend who you are now. And maybe not to defend who you were then. Resist the temptation to become offended, falling into the trap of defensiveness. It may make you feel like your memory is what people prefer versus the reality of who you are now. And perhaps you are those things. And time has also woven and threaded more of who you are into what Brent Roberts calls your tapestry. Perhaps you are who God says you are, an image bearer of Him. You are the plural form of the present tense of be. You are being you. So what do you do in those situations when someone reminds you of who you used to be? How do you navigate those tough table conversations, especially in the midst of other inquiring minds? This first solution may feel a little bit strange. It may feel a little strange at first, especially if you are quite an offended person. This is how you should respond. The first thing that you should do when people try to remind you of your past and they want to keep you buried in your past is to acknowledge that there was a time when that was you, and then own your new narrative. There is no sweeter way to dead end an unwanted situation than to come into agreement with the truth. Take accountability where there is responsibility. And of course, we have all dealt with petty people out there who will try to remind you. And one of the best ways that you can succeed in this situation is to acknowledge who you were with accuracy. Pinpoint accuracy. Yes, I really loved to party back then. Thank goodness I got that out of my system. I couldn't imagine living that way now. Acknowledge and own. Remember, the old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. The second one I want to share with you is to neutralize the playing field. Now, this is not meant to function from a petty place, and it's going to be all up to your tone and delivery. I'm not the best with tone and delivery, so please don't seek my advice for this. But I'm going to give you a couple words that maybe you can say. Okay, you have acknowledged and you have owned, and they might continue. So you will have to set a boundary by neutralizing the playing field. That boundary is a protection of your emotional peace during this time. Who wants to have their bells jingled at Christmas dinner? That probably was a terrible analogy. Forget what I said. Forget I said that. Who wants to be offended repeatedly in a time of peace and goodwill on earth towards men? Who wants to do that? Not I, says the cow. So you must protect your emotional safety and set a boundary for those family members and old friends who are fixated on proving a point. Neutralize the situation by saying something like, I have been able to move on from that time in my life. Would you like to join me? That's a little passive aggressive. Let's try again. That time in my life no longer holds the same value to me. If there's more that you want to express to me about it, we can take that offline. Offline means not here at this table in front of everybody because I see what you're trying to do. Okay. We'll take it offline. If there's more, because sometimes there's things that you've offended them about, right? There's things that have happened between the two of you that they're ready to get right now in front of everybody because they feel empowered, right? But you can say, yeah, that was a time that did happen. But I'm not willing to discuss that because I'm someone new. I'm not willing to discuss it here. So maybe we can take that offline, right? That's something that you can do. Or you can say, we all have things that we recall from our past that aren't true for us anymore. That is where I am today. Neutralize the playing field for the sake of your personal peace. Thirdly, I want to say, share what is new for you. Share, create a new memory for them to cleave to. It's one thing to acknowledge and to neutralize, right? Setting those boundaries, that's all great and it's perfect, but you can't leave your loved ones there. Because now you've left it open field for them to create whatever they want to create about who you are. You hinted that there's things that are new, right? So now it's time to share what is new, despite some people's unwillingness to want to hear it. Some people aren't going to be able to see the meaning of the art in front of them until they have the discussion with the artist explaining their intention. And even still, with that artistic explanation, people will interpret your art as they see life. And in that, you can't fixate. You cannot fixate on how people want to interpret life. Some people are just naturally pessimistic. Some people are mean. And there's nothing you can do about that. All you can do, though, is share with them what is new. You can only deliver what is true for now. So you can say, I'd love to tell you all about what has been going on for me. Or you can say, so much has changed that I must share with you. You create excitement because you are excited to no longer be what you once were. You're so much more, even though way back then you weren't any less. They may have seen you as that, but you weren't. And number 4, this is the last one, leave it. You got to leave it. Even Jesus went places his disciples couldn't go. He went places that only a select few of disciples could go. And that is the key to managing your relationships intelligently, is everybody can't go. That means you have held your own at the table. You have moved through your tough table conversation, and now you leave it where it is. Like I said earlier, some of us are stubborn, right? Some people are stubborn and they won't leave alone well enough what needs to be left alone. And some of us will think that we have something on you, but you don't need to defend what is true. Truth defends itself. The truth stands in its own trial. Prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. People will try to prophesy things into your life that are untrue. And it is your job to discern what is good, what is pleasing, and the perfect will of God. Romans 12:2. Even when others can't distinguish it. In closing, rest in this. The tough table conversations will come. They are a means by which we can become better acquainted and more familiar with those who were encapsulated by the past. And not everyone can come, of course. But if you have a moment, if you have a chance and an opportunity, bring those who can. Sometimes they won't see the fruit of your changed values. They won't see your changed lifestyle, and they won't see the updated tapestry. But you are responsible for what people see and experience from you. At least you can try. So shy not away from those tough table conversations this holiday season. God prepared that table for you. Take your seat. Merry Christmas to you and yours, and thank you guys for loving yourself first so you can then go and love your neighbor. Until next time.
Why don't you stay a little longer? You like what you like, right? Subscribe to the channel so we can spend a little more time together, and maybe comment your thoughts because I care what you're thinking. Love is the risk and the reward.